Perspectives, different views, one voice.
Welcome to the LDN Perspective podcast. My name is Kojo, and we have one of our, I don't even know, what do we call him? This guy's back, man. This nonsense guy, after how long? Well, we have one of the original members of the LDN Perspective podcast. He's back, and this is his first episode back. So we'll let him introduce himself before we get the other co-host on.
Okay, Cam, I'm back. 2020, it's a new start.
Brat.
I'm looking forward to all the interesting topics that we'll have an opportunity to discuss throughout this year. So just glad to sort of be back in the team and back, to sort of, having these profound talks on things that are, extremely important.
Cool. Welcome back. What is it? A clap? Round of applause? Yeah. What's going on here? All right. Cool. So we have come, and I'm with my other co-host
Mo, Ali,
and today we are discussing Britain is 100% racist.
Question mark.
Britain, since the 1960s, Britain has been discussing about the original of the country itself, how racist it is, or do we know that? But our main topic today is to understand the fundamental of the racist part of the country. Is it within London itself, or is it within the widespread of United Kingdom? So we're going to tackle that, and I hope our host here, we all kind of chip in, and our listeners to understand the fundamental of it as well. So yeah, Britain is 100% racist. What's our host saying here? What?
Can I just start off maybe by just saying it's like, what's the definition of racism?
Yeah.
Maybe start off just sort of understanding that, because obviously racism can sort of take different forms, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. You're right.
I've got a definition here that racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone at a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. Is that a definition that we all agree on?
Yeah, I think that's the universal view of racism, to be honest. A lot of the time I do feel the prejudice side of it may be confusing some people with how they might use racism. So someone can be prejudiced towards someone, but then you might be defensive and take it as if they're being racist. What do you think?
No, I agree. I agree regarding someone can be prejudiced against someone. I guess it's what are they being prejudiced about? Are they being prejudiced because of the colour of their skin? If you get what I mean.
So they could be prejudiced that all black people are late. That's the prejudice, yeah. So you come in late, it's because you're black. But
that's based on someone's colours, like the colour of someone's skin.
Yeah.
So it's a stereotype that's out there that even other black people use, and they say these kind of things. So yeah, I guess it qualifies what you're saying in that sense. But it still unnerves me though, coming from a white person, I must say, personally, because really it's not a statement that I accept from black people, so it will not be a statement that I'll accept from white people neither, if you get what I mean. Because I don't believe in those kind of stereotypical views, or lateness is not something that I personally do. I'm always on time. So when people are late, it kind of just pisses me off. So for a black person to say it, I'm still not going to accept it, let alone a white person, because then you're using the colour of the skin, and I'm thinking, I'm not late. So how does that work, if you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
All right, so Britain 100% racist. Do you guys think that there is racism within Britain, or even in the statement in itself that Britain is 100% totally racist?
Obviously, I can't generalise and say Britain is 100% racist. Well, what I can say is I do believe that there is racism in the UK, I think for the most part, a lot of it can be quite covert. So if someone is in a circumstance where they feel as though they are experiencing some form of racism, sometimes it could be, some people could see as you're jumping the gun, reaching an unfound conclusion because it's not so obvious that's taking place. But sometimes there's an energy, and sometimes you could pick from that energy that, something's going on, something's not right here, and you can eliminate all other possibilities to reach that conclusion. But that's why I would say it's covert, because in some instances, someone could sort of hide behind some other reason and say, well, no, we're not behaving in this particular way because of racism. This is it, And I feel like even when you sort of contrast it to, say, America, I think America, I think that obviously there's clearly racism there, but it seems to be more direct and somewhat a bit more overt as well, as opposed to how it is in the UK. I think the UK is definitely more covert than America, and it can be sort of, as I said, it's an interesting sort of topic to tackle.
Do you find that when it is more in your face, is that something that you would prefer than it being covert, as you have that direct interaction and you can directly deal with it, as opposed to it being covert? It's harder to manage or maneuver.
I think the problem you have when it's covert is that there's a general understanding that it doesn't exist. So there are mechanisms that have enforced these kind of beliefs. I almost call them institutionalized. And I think a lot of the times when it's overt, it kind of arms you to know how you need to maneuver. So you almost know what's in front of you, kind of thing, which kind of helps in getting that conversation, even having that conversation in the first place. I feel like in the UK, even to have that conversation is a challenge, because first of all, it's not accepted anyway. So you have the example, and I think it's something that we're going to touch on anyway. But I was reading an article, and it was an article written by Paul Ian Campbell. And really, the article is titled Stormzy and Gary Neville, How Privilege Works in the 21st Century Britain. And the whole idea was that towards the end of last year, Stormzy was in Italy, and he was asked the question whether Britain was still racist. And he said definitely 100%, right?
He said definitely 100.
He said definitely 100, yes. And from him saying that, it was reported in the British press that he said Britain is 100% racist. There was also a game, I think Chelsea and another team played, where on Sky Sports, Gary Neville said that there is racism in our communities. And he currently actually called out the government, Boris Johnson and stuff, to do something about it. So in regards to this specific article, what the article was saying is you literally have Stormzy saying the same thing as Gary Neville. Mm-hmm. However, Gary Neville's comments and opinions are accepted in the wider public opinion domain, and Stormzy is vilified. You have someone that made a statement, and I need to read this out. So Paul Scott, he's an academic specializing in terrorism studies at SOAS. I'm not sure what. SOAS,
that's School of Oriental and African Studies.
I knew someone would know. Great stuff. So he put this on Twitter, December 22nd, 2019 at 9 a.m. And this is his comment. He said, "If there's one thing that British are rubbish at, it's racism. After Stormzy's dad did the runner, our welfare state helped bring him up. It may not have been perfect, but it was better than what was on offer in Ghana." So, do you want me to read that again, or you?
No, that is deep.
Yeah?
That is deep.
So imagine that you're literally saying the same thing that most people know actually exists within this country, but it's only because you're black, you're not given that space to actually talk about it. But then when a white commentator mentions this, it's fine. He's being put forward like a hero for discussing these kind of conversations. Yeah. And I guess the point that the article is trying to make is that not necessarily that Britain is not racist. It's just that sometimes who's even given the platform to talk about Britain being racist? Yeah. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's found to be a very dirty word.
Racism.
Yeah. And people don't like to touch it, on that topic because, it sort of, it unravels sort of like, feelings of probably shame and disgust. You know what I mean?
It's like a political.
But like obviously, like the only way to really sort of address or tackle or sort of fix, that problem is to talk about it, is to have open discussions, you know, and yeah.
So yeah, I've got a kind of a phrase. It says that your use of the word racism became more widespread after the 1936, although the term racist hatred was in use late 1920s by the psychological Friedrich Hens. So in general, there was a study since 2014 and 15 claimed that Britain racism is on the rise in the UK. They literally they have come to a study to claim that. To my experiences, especially what Cam just highlighted, it's a very touchy word, racism, to use. And as soon as you raise that up, it's like an alert. It's like a alert, and it's like a warning sign alert. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to even want to go on. And the way I see Britain, from my upgrowing, the way I see Britain is, when it comes to racism, it's underneath the carpet. I don't know if anyone, you guys here, noticed that. It's underneath the carpet. The reason what I meant by the terms of underneath the carpet is, as soon as you use the word racism, they were trying to push it as much as possible, not to talk about it. They get offended. They get hate. They get like a bit worried. They get like aggressive towards it, and they start saying, "Oh, why are you using a false allocations words?" You know, they just the word, especially at work. Like what I notice at work, you've got all these big bosses, chairmen, boss. Majority of them are white, literally white, right? And obviously white woman as well. And as soon as a black person wants to become a chairman or a chairwoman or a CEO or something, or you want your pay or your title to change, it's an attack. It's literally an attack. I'll give a perfect example with my missus. I don't want to name the company, but she goes through a hell of a hassle. Before, when she first started the company, it was a promise that a title will change and a salary will change and so on. It was given because she was good at her job. 3 months, 6 months down the line, she had an appraisal, wanted to go forward for it. And they were going, we don't, our company policy, we do not give a raise, or we don't change anything here until the end of the terms, which is the end of the new financial terms, all of that. So, and then you go, okay, fair enough.
Sorry, do you mean financial year or financial terms?
Oh, no, the financial year for the company. So fair enough. She said, okay, fine. So she did her job. Everything was fine. She passed the 3-month probation or whatsoever. She was in that final into the company. Then moving forward now, as time was going by, she's starting to spread her wings. I mean, starting to understand people within the company, gathering around and so on. And then what happened next was there was a project administrator, which is her title was even higher than her. She threatened to leave the company and go back to where she originally come from. Because they liked her, they raised her title.
Where did she originally come from?
She come from Australia. So they raised her title. But they're not knowing, this person told my missus that this is what's going on. And then she told me about it and says, how should I approach this? I said, well, first of all, don't tell them who told you and so on. Just try and have another appraisal. So she had another appraiser trying to raise up the situation again. And they go, oh, no, we can't have it again, this and that, because the company has a share. Everyone's within the company have the share. So it's unfair for you to just give you a new title or a new raise. So we can't do that. But not knowing behind the closed door, they do all this kind of stuff. It's all about favorism. And she was okay. She was confused. But she doesn't want to go in a way where they will use her as, you're scared, you're a very aggressive black woman, you are always attacking, you are always shouting, you always want your voice to hear. That's what we get all the time. That's what she feels like she gets all the time. Because she's out of the company, there's 100 employees. Out of the company, she's literally the one black woman and the one black man in the whole company, and then you get like Asia or Mediterranean or Spanish, you get like 1% out of that, out of 100. And then when you look at the table, out of the 100, you got the CEO, you got the chairwoman, the chairman, you've got the assistants, and you got the managers. And then below, you got the assistants, like just the general, and then you got the administrative. All of them literally on the top is all white. Then but she's doing well. She's done so much well for the company because her title is marketing and communication in the company. So she just wanted to just get a good title where she's the only person that is doing that job. She's the only person that's only focusing and getting all the recommendation. Even she had an interview with I think Google or something like that. I can't remember. She had a big interview with one of the companies for the company because want to spread the company more further. So she noticed to know what is going on, and then she says, "How do I tackle this?" You know what? What you need to do? Be professional about it. Leave it. Wait for the financial terms for the company to come, and then you want to talk about it. But obviously, unfortunately, now she's in maternity for now. But she's going to go back and try to tackle that. But that's a perfect example of what happens in United Kingdom.
So just to summarize, she seems to be in some sort of specialist role. Her specific role seems to be like a specialist role.
Because it's a new role.
Yeah, so it's a new role that she's kind of created, and I'm guessing she wants a promotion.
Oh, absolutely.
So salary and title to kind of change
because
accordingly.
she's doing a lot.
And the company are doing it for other people that are not black.
Yes.
But for her,
it's
they're kind of using some sort of excuse to talk about financial year and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Have you guys come across certain stuff like that in your field?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to delve in terms of me personally living in the UK and directly experiencing racism. So I'll say growing up in terms of primary school, secondary school, I couldn't say that I personally experienced racism directly. So I grew up in Waterloo, South London. It's a council estate. It's not your most dangerous council estate, as much as it may not look that appealing to others. Literally on the same street, you'll have big period houses where you'll get middle-class people actually living. So it was a big mix. It had middle-class people literally right next door to us, as well as you've also got 2, 3, 4 big blocks of council estates. And even in my particular council estate, there was probably about 4 black families, I would say. But with those black families, maybe they were African black families, and for them, they didn't really let their kids play out as much. So in terms of me playing out, I was playing out with my family, which was 5 of our siblings, all literally a year apart, so we're close in age, and then we're playing with other like white kids in the area and stuff like that. But yes, as I was saying, there wasn't really much racism, I would say, I experienced directly. Maybe I might have experienced a lot of what you might call colorism now. Obviously, at the time, I wouldn't have called it colorism. I might have thought that was another form of racism towards myself from my own people. But I would say it was only once I was in secondary school or after secondary school and I started driving, because I started driving quite early, from about 16. That's when you now start to experience racism. That's when I now start to... And it was mainly from the police, to be honest with you. So a lot of people will say, as a black person, your first encounter with the police is always negative. I always felt the same until my mum actually reminded me that in primary school, there was a police officer that was there all the time. PC Snow, he used to come, whatever. But I never really identified him as a police officer then or whatever, because he would come dressed in Santa's suit for Christmas, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So in school, so I think I got my first car or something like that, and I got pulled over, what is it? I counted it. It was 15 times in 1 week I got pulled over. And the way I am is I am very confrontational. So I will address what is the situation, even though you're not telling me or whatever. They'll use all these little different excuses. And it was to the point where they actually stopped pulling me over because they couldn't actually handle pulling me over, because I'm aware of what's going on and I'll question them and talk to them in a certain way, as opposed to some other people might just take whatever they're saying and allow them to get stopped and searched for no reason and stuff like that. So yeah, and then obviously then going into employment and things like that, not getting no replies or whatever. And then that's when I was introduced to the whole blind CV thing, where you haven't put your name in, and then you start to get more replies, and then you kind of see.
So you do that? You just like send your CV with no name on it? Or something?
Yeah, you can do that if you do it through the agencies, or what is it called again? When you go and give them your CV and that, and they help you find a job. Recruitment agencies. Yeah. So if you send it to a recruitment agency, they will take your details, and whoever they're sending it on to, they won't put your name and stuff on.
Right, okay. Really?
Yeah, so they can do that option. Yeah, but you have to tell them, ask them. But a lot of them can do that. Okay. And the main thing is that they provide your details, and the employer likes you on your merit, what you've experienced and what you've done. So that's me personally in terms of racism directly. But at the same time, even though I may not have been experiencing it directly, I was fully aware of what is going on around and my peers and stuff like that, and what's happening, especially to the other young black kids in my area and where I've known and stuff.
I think likewise as well. I mean, obviously I grew up in South East London as well, the oldest of three, and I grew up around Woolworth Road, and you know, I can't say I ever experienced direct racism. You know, even from as far as primary school up until like secondary school, and I guess I was always within a multicultural environment. So my peers were white, black, Asian. You know, I mixed with people of different races, so I never ever experienced racism, you know, or prejudice, so to speak. And even after secondary school, when I went to college, can't say I ever really felt it then. Entering the workforce, I was quite fortunate because obviously I'm a lawyer, but when I was trying to get experience in law, I mean, I got experience from white employers as well as black employers. A lot of the experiences I got, I have to say, the opportunities I was given was from black, individuals. Even in terms of like applying for jobs and getting experience, it was black individuals that gave me that opportunity. And even getting the opportunity to qualify, that was from a black run firm. I was given an opportunity there. And I probably, although I wasn't, unaware that, prejudice and racism took place around me, and that was just from experiences, from what stories I'd heard from people, from peers, and maybe even maybe even things my mum would have said to me when I was younger as well. Like she would sort of try to drill certain, principles into my mind, especially growing up as a young black man in London. So she always tried to drive home the fact that, you are black, it's a privilege, but at the same time, you need to be completely aware of, the limitations that have been put in place in this country in terms of race and prejudice and that sort of stuff. When I qualified as a lawyer, started practicing criminal law, and I started to attend court and represent people in court. And I think that's when I probably got a bit more of a holistic view as to, race more, say, within the legal or the criminal justice system. And, I can say I certainly saw, instances where I may have represented a black defendant and a white defendant on similar offences, and their background would be just as similar as each other in terms of like their previous convictions and all, and arrest record. And, the black defendant might receive a sentence that's much more harsher than the white defendant. And this wasn't a regular occurrence, so I could never just say it was completely down to race. But in the magistrates' court, where I represent people a lot of the time, you have two types of judges. You have a district judge, who's a qualified lawyer, and they've been practicing for a significant period of time, and then they qualify as a judge. And then you have a bench of magistrates. And that's 3 people that sit collectively as a judge. And at a bench of magistrates, they're just regular members of society, and they volunteer their time to sit in the court. And so when I'm attending court, I don't know if I'm going to be appearing before a district judge or a bench of magistrates. Obviously, a district judge is legally qualified, and bench of magistrates, although they do get training, you know, inherently speaking, they're not legally qualified. And so they you know, when they do come and judge, they might come with certain, you know, biases or you know, or preconceived notions, you know, about race. And so, you know, a lot of the time, the majority will be, you know, there'll be a mixture of different sort of magistrates, but like, you know, I'll come across white, sort of predominantly white sort of magistrates. And to sort of drive home the point, is that, you know, there are instances where I've represented, you know, white and black defendants, and I've seen black defendants get a harsher sentence than a white defendant, and the only thing I can sort of distinguish between the two is the race. Yeah. You know,
just going on what you say.
But to add to that, David Lammy was sort of commissioned to do a report on like racial biases within the criminal justice system, and he found that there was, and that report was published in 2017. So I would sort of, advise people to sort of get that report and look at it, because it speaks about the racial biases in terms of sentence, pleas, verdicts, that sort of stuff.
Because in what you're saying now, I know I've obviously got a charity work with young people, and what I've found is black young people are used as an example in their sentencing, as opposed to their white peers, where they're given that benefit of the doubt that they know they've done wrong or whatever. But why is it the black kid is always an example, but the young other white child isn't an example?
Because it was just like, just before I even answered that. But just going back on what you just said, because you mentioned the district judge, and then you have the bench of
magistrates.
Yeah. But then in what you're saying, it kind of makes me allude that the district judge is not going to will not have much racial preferences in their judgment or sentencing.
They shouldn't.
You kind of made it seem as if
the expectation.
I'm just saying, just based on what you just kind of said, it kind of made it seem that maybe the bench of magistrates are a bit more racially motivated than the district judge. Is that the case? Or
I can't say that. You know, I can say from my experience, I've, you know, and where I've represented similar defendants, it has been before magistrates, and, you know, where I've seen sort of those, where I've seen that imbalance in terms of sentencing, it's definitely been before magistrates. I can't say I've seen it before district judges. That's not to say it doesn't happen. I just can't say I've identified those sort of things happening when I've been before a district judge, and that might very well be because a district judge, you know, and it's, you know, as I said, I guess because they've been a qualified lawyer and they've probably come from a place or experience where they've represented people of different backgrounds and cultures, so, you know, they might still have preconceived notions of those particular people. But I think I guess my assumption is when they're sentencing, they focus much more on the law because they're legally qualified. But I could be wrong in that.
Yeah, I just think that because obviously if you talk about the commissioning, you spoke about David Lammy and the work that he did in regards to the information that he publicised in 2017.
Yeah.
And if he's saying intrinsically the whole it's not law system, but
criminal justice
system.
Yeah.
Did he outrightly say it's racist?
He said there's racial bias.
There's racial bias.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing if you're saying there's racial bias, then that will go across board to people that have been qualified for whatever years, having that kind of preconceived. But just going back onto the point of the black person or young black person being made an example of, it is very interesting because just like the statement that I read about this Paul Scott, who is what, SOAS again?
School of Oriental and African Studies. Yeah,
it's like SOAS. Yeah, SOAS. So it's like the point that he kind of made, where he's kind of talking about how Stormzy has benefited from like the system that's within Britain, and his dad ran away, all those kind of stuff. So it's always like when the black person does it, you should know better because of how much we have forked out to help you. You should know better. The white person is a norm, but for you, you should know better. That's how I kind of see it. Because from the kind of article or the statement that he made on Twitter, it's almost assuming that you should appreciate more of Britain and what Britain has done for you.
Grateful.
You should be grateful for what we've done for you. But it's like we've given you this platform and you're just there squandering, or you're there talking bad about us, that kind of thing. And I kind of feel like in regards to those judgment, that example, it's like, we've given you this. Like, back home, what would you be doing? And all that kind of stuff. How can you have this opportunity and be wasting it? I feel like intrinsically that could be part of the
that's what I get. That's
driven
the feeling, right.
motivation behind it.
Yeah. No, I
basically needs to fall in line. Yeah,
needs to fall in line. Need to check yourself. What do you think you're saying?
Yeah, but you know, with that being said, you know, you look back on like history of the UK, even like the most recent history, you can see instances of where there has been, you know, examples of, I guess, you know, racist behaviour, even in the form of the Windrush scandal, and, you know, when you even go as far back as, say, you know, the Stephen Lawrence case. So, you know, I think although, was it Paul Scott, you said? Is it Paul Scott said this stuff about Storms?
Dr. Paul Scott.
So, and what, just before I ask, what race is Paul Scott?
Oh, he looks like a white middle class man.
Okay.
Wearing glasses and a tie. You know that look.
And he's basically saying Stormzy should basically be grateful for the opportunities he's had.
So what he's saying here, just reading out the statement put on Twitter, 9 a.m. December 22nd, 2019. If there's one thing that the British are rubbish at, it's racism. After Stormzy's dad did a runner, our welfare state helped bring him up. It may not have been perfect, but it was better than what it was on offer in Ghana. Just because he said that Britain is racist. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you shouldn't say that because of what Britain has done for you. This is why I mentioned when you made that kind of statement. It's almost like you are privileged. Like, you're getting way better here than you'd have got if you went back home. So you should appreciate that Britain. How can Britain be racist, or how dare you talk about us being racist when we've offered you this platform in the first place? I think personally for me, I will echo what you two kind of said, where growing up in school was just a funny thing, innit? You had more of your own laughing, fresh from Africa, all those kind of jokes, rather than a white person actually being racist to me in school. So that was not really the case for me. But I think when I started, was more college. And then when it became where, obviously, the area that I grew up in, Wharf Road, a lot of us used to hang around. And I must say, initially, hanging around was just hanging around doing nothing, but it was just a group of boys hanging around. And we used to get a lot, the police were quite heavy-handed in regards to how they used to treat us. Mm-hmm. So it just came to, and it was almost like, I felt like it was fair, because I just thought that's all I knew. That was my first encounter with police. Oh, let me pat you down. I didn't know any different. Okay, like, am I meant to be a criminal? So I'm saying that from the stages of you just hanging around, and every time they stop you, their understanding is that you might have something on you. Either you're selling drugs or you're carrying a knife. This was the general understanding that we kind of grew up. And obviously, as time goes on, in that area was known for that. So I'm not going to even dispute that. So it's almost like, because the area was part and parcel of that, every time I used to hang around with people like that. So I guess my experience with the police, I never really saw it any different. I must say, when I did start driving, the first car that I bought, I used to get stopped till, and they used to say that these cars are known for drug, like drug dealers, or these kind of people have these kind of cars.
What,
and
was
those
it
Africans, it wasn't tinted. It was just a Golf.
Okay.
It was a Golf.
Golf was.
You know, on Wharf Road, I was literally stopped one time near the McDonald's, and 4 cars literally drove up, surrounded the car, big massive flashlight, and just pulled me out and went and started searching it straight.
Yeah, but I've known police come up to us, someone's on the bike, push the person off the bike, literally I've known people got beaten up in a police van. That's just stories upon stories. But just what I was trying to say is that at that point I was in uni and all these kind of things, but they were stopping me. Where did you get this money from? Oh, how can you buy this car? I can't afford this car. So a lot of the stuff that they were saying was very loaded, and you kind of know what their intentions are, what they're trying to say. You must be a drug dealer and all these kind of things. So I won't say that I've directly experienced racism, but I would say in the working environment, I have had personal experiences where someone has made a point where it's led me to believe that it was because of the color of my skin, kind of thing. So I have had those kind of experiences, and a lot of the stuff that you're saying about your missus, I echo some of those sentiments because I know people that have directly gone through it, and I've gone through it in some stages of my career before. So I definitely understand some of and how obviously the persona of the modern black man or black woman being aggressive, all those kind of things. And so I think sometimes you get yourself in a very, very difficult situation where you know this thing is affecting you, but to even communicate, it could either be negative, could be seen as a negative step kind of thing.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.
But I guess where we are in this conversation, I kind of wanted to get to why we're even discussing this. And I feel like this has come to light more to do with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Issues that are going on where people are directly asking, is Britain racist because of the treatment of Meghan Markle, what she's kind of going through at the moment. And I guess it starts off from where there's this assumption that is being put forward to say that she is the one that is directly involved in leading Prince Harry away from the royal family kind of thing. And I feel like that's not necessarily fair kind of assumption to being spread around. What do you guys think, just based on those conversations as well, adding that to this kind of Britain racist discussion that we're having?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Meghan and Harry thing is a bit crazy, and it's definitely something that's been on the lips of everyone in the past few weeks and months, especially with them choosing to leave their duties, and then I believe it's now official that their titles will be taken away. So it's a crazy one, but I do feel that this is something that the media do towards black individual, even though Meghan might identify herself as biracial.
But the media is not the media Britain, part of Britain.
Yeah, definitely,
I kind of guess it represents the
well, put it this way, they are basically subconsciously fueling that narrative of racism over the years throughout the British public. And a lot of the British public are reading all these kind of languages used by the media and the connotations which they're implying towards black people in general, and taking this on as if this is literal fact and this is exactly how black people are and behave.
You're right. I mean, it's one of those ones where, like, I haven't read all the stuff or even listened to all the coverage, that's been taking place on them. But, it's one of those situations where I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that actually media's been there's been any direct forms of racism, as in racist language or anything of that sort being used. But there is that situation where something don't smell right, and it just don't seem right. And there seem to be some racial undertones. When something has to do with race, no one's saying anything about race. But I guess, and to even link it back to being black, being black, you're almost armed with that sort of like intuition about, I know when something don't fit right. This don't look good.
Is that like the covert nature of the British as opposed to America where it's outright said?
Yeah. So obviously, as the rounds has been going on, I was just like you. I didn't really fully understand. I wasn't really that bothered. I must say, the royal family is not something that I wake up going, I wasn't really that bothered. But when this whole kind of thing was brewing up, I thought, okay, let's just read up a bit more. So I came across a video on YouTube, ITV, where Piers Morgan was having this conversation with she's a journalist. I know she's a lecturer in the US as well.
Is it Dr. Shola?
No, this one with Afua Hirsch.
I'm not entirely sure. I know she wrote that book, British.
She was lecturing at one of the universities in the US. And I guess from Piers Morgan's statement that he kind of made, he said that Britain is not racist because if you look within history, the short history, Princess Diana went through this kind of thing. And he also mentioned that Camilla kind of went through this kind of stuff. So from his standpoint in making those points, like, there isn't anything different from what Meghan Markle is going through. And that's what he used to say that Britain is not racist, because people that belong to the royal family have gone through this trend. And
Okay.
kind of-
Now let me tap into what your statement you mentioned. Camilla, she's having an affair with the father, right? That is not right. That shouldn't be the case. That's why she had a lot of publicity in that side.
When you say you're talking about Prince Charles, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Prince Charles. And Princess Diana, the reason why she had the publicity that way she did, because she wanted to have an affair with the Dodi.
No, it's
Well,
not an affair. That wasn't an affair.
Yeah.
No,
That wasn't.
I know what you're saying
Yeah,
because
I need to
following
let
the
people.
conversation.
Yeah. She
Then-
went more higher, and then trying to make her feel like she's doing the wrongness within the royal family. However, what I'm trying to say about Meghan, right? What I'm trying to say about Meghan, first of all, Meghan, she's not the first black royal family. She hasn't. I mean, she's not the first woman to be in the black in the royal family. We just need to make that clear, right? Because Princess Charlotte has been one of the since in the
She was one of the first, you mean, black princess within. She was the first black. Is that
she
what-
had 15 children, and then within that,
I disagree,
disagree what?
but that is a whole different conversation.
No. I'm just trying to let it.
You disagree that Princess Charlotte was the first black royal
black-
family member?
yeah.
No.
What conversation are we having here? Sorry,
No, I'm just trying
That
to.
she was the first black
Is that what you're
royal
saying?
family member.
Yeah, but no, I'm trying to address it because Piers Morgan's his article when Dr. Shola Mos Shambamio was mentioning Meghan, she's trying to allow Harry to go and escape on the royal family and go to Canada and make their own family and so on. It's just a scandal within the royal family. And then Piers Morgan mentioned that, by the way, just let you know that Meghan is the first black woman to be in the royal family. And then obviously Dr. Mos Shamba was trying to highlight that and mention that no, it's not the case. But because how Piers Morgan is, he want to allow her to have a statement further down that line because he doesn't want the audience or the listeners to know exactly what's the history behind that. So what I'm trying to say, this is a perfect example of racism in that sense, because if you know the truth, that he knows the truth is out there or it is the truth, why not allow the host or the presenter to come into your program or into your show, as we was discussing earlier, and give them the opportunity to talk further and explain what it is. What I'm trying to say is that Meghan has been attacked. Personally, she has been attacked for no reason. Okay, fair enough. She's divorced. She's had other stuff. She's doing whatever she is. That's her situation. You know, you don't have to come and bring in all the past and start talking negative about a woman that's gone through a lot. She's disowned her dad. And she's just holding her mom to be part of the family, and then going on and on and on and on. Negative things for what reason? I don't understand.
I guess, yeah, so just as Ashley touched on, when Piers made that distinction from other members of the royal family that have suffered such media, I don't know, what do you call it?
Outrage.
Ridicule, that type of thing. And I think whoever that was speaking to Piers Morgan, I don't remember who it was, kind of just mentioned that with these people that you've mentioned, Diana and what's his name, Camilla, they actually did something.
Yeah.
I seen there was something actually going on. I guess with Diana, Dodi was like what, Muslim or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was unheard of, you know. So it's not that she deserved it, don't get me wrong. It's nothing to do with them deserving it. But in comparing that to what Meghan hasn't done anything.
Just her past.
The only thing she's kind of done is just being married to Prince Harry. So she hasn't done anything that warrants even that kind of media exposure as to what. And I guess there was something actually doing the rounds on social media as well. There was 20 articles just comparing Kate Middleton. Same thing that they write about Kate Middleton, but again with Meghan, there's kind of like a twist about it, kind of
A
thing.
negative
a negative
connotation.
connotation.
Yeah.
About which goes back into your whole conversation about being covert, where it's like as a black person you're like, yeah, I know exactly what's going on here, but when it comes to those media outlets and having those conversations, they always point to something else to say, oh no, but it's not that, but it's this.
And as I said, because it's, it's never they they don't use any language that sort of indicates that it's definitely a racial bias, or
No, but then even saying that, remember then when they had their baby and there was a BBC presenter, he got his
chimps,
he tweeted a picture of a chimp, right? And he got sacked. And Piers was actually making a point to say that
he didn't know,
but he didn't know. How can he be racist? He just didn't know. He just thought. And I was thinking the only reason why he put a picture of a chimp is because she was black.
That's it.
If she was not black, you wouldn't do that. So how can you not
defend
say
that?
To me?
He was defending him.
And that's the frustration I have watching something.
But that's because there are many people like Piers that will have that same ignorance, whereby you show them
it's not ignorance.
I don't think it's
blatant.
ignorance, but I'll let you carry on.
Where you show them blatant examples of misrepresentation, racism in comparison to others, but they still won't see it that way, just because for them they're trying to. It could be the intentional hiding.
Yeah, that's what
of
I think
what
it is.
of what it is they really feel, and they don't want it to be blatantly out there. But
he can't be.
To give him the benefit of the doubt, there's the ignorant side, which they kind of do have to own up to as well.
No, he doesn't want to blatantly bring it out there. If he does that, he will ruin his reputation. That's what it is. Yeah. That's literally what it comes down to.
So I think he plays on his reputation, right? So Piers Morgan is meant to be this outspoken, just say whatever nonsense, whatever it is.
I don't have fun with him, man.
Rude, abusive bully.
Yeah. He plays from that reputation in order to say whatever. Right? So with his reputation, that even boosts his reputation. But the problem that you have with this, though, is that it's not just Piers Morgan that thinks like this. The nation thinks like this.
That's it.
He's protecting something that's so innate and intrinsic to them. So on one hand, you could see it as ignorance, but on the other hand, it's just that, I guess, ignorance, and then there's the bliss side of it, innit? If I keep on saying that this is never racist, then I'll never really need to sit down and actually reflect on my behavior, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's within my community. I never have to really sit there and say that, because I could say that, no, we're not racist. Come on, how can we be racist because of that? Do you know what I mean? So you never really tackle you never really address the situation. So it's always, and 10 years down the line, this thing will come up again in Britain. Yeah. Because Britain is always this country where it's like, oh, but look at what we've done. Look at that, we brought you up without your dad. How can we be racist? These are the stuff that they always throw out there. And you have to understand how this is institutionalized, because within every institution, you have someone as a mouthpiece that will add a piece to the puzzle. Oh, yeah, we did this. Oh, yeah, we did that. The media will come and say this. You have royal correspondence or royal... I don't even know how they have that title, but they speak for the royal family and how the royal family, their views and whatever it is. They'll come out and say something like, oh, but it's not... Some of them are saying that this is even worse than... Who is this guy that had his rape cases? He belongs to the royal family.
Prince Andrew.
Prince Andrew. They're like, oh, this is even far worse than that. And people on the panel are thinking, what are you talking about? What
you know what? I think
just leaving.
But then it's not even just tactics. Leaving. It's when you're just talking about Meghan, it's like, what has she actually done to get this kind of outrage or whatever it is that people... We're just talking about that.
You know what? I think this is a tactics, because Prince Andrew had his situation. Somehow he's just buried, and then out of the blue, Meghan just came up without no warning, without no sign, and it just blew up. And then Andrew now's case, if you've noticed here, no one talks about it.
But then that Meghan thing's been bubbling. If you check the dates on some of these articles, it's been bubbling away for.
I know, so but they use it. But they use it because Prince Andrew's situation is actually deep. When you really think about it, it's actually deep. But they don't want to talk about that. And then the funny thing, what Piers Morgan said about Meghan is that because he's known her for about a year and a half, so he said this. He was saying this: when someone show you the true color, take the word for it, believe them. I don't know what he meant by that statement.
Because he's trying to say, based on the going back, looking at her life and some of the decisions that's made, that reflects in why
she's
behaving like this now. And he personally believes that she is the reason why Harry is migrating to Canada and leaving a royal family.
What are we saying?
Because the point that he's trying to say is that once she got this title or she became part of the royal family, she has left all her friends behind, which includes him, because he was a friend and stuff like that. So, and you could see the situation with her dad. So he kind of put a catalogue of things to then qualify the statement of why he believes that she's the reason why Harry. And so it's basically he's qualifying the statement to say that she is making Harry do the same. So he believes that this is not, and it's almost like, so imagine this here. This is this poor white man, who's been to the army, who was doing all sorts of nonsense before Meghan was even part of this. Remember, he dressed as a Nazi. He wore this Nazi costume for what is it that they do, Halloween.
What about Princess Michael, who wore the brooch that sort of had racist sort of ties linked to it? So I'm just going to look it up now because I remember.
So why should you?
She was going to a dinner with Meghan, where Meghan was present, and she wore a brooch that had. I'm just trying to find the article now.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.
But with that being said, I also wanted to sort of touch upon another form of misrepresentation in terms of like race, like that's perpetuated by the media. I think it comes from, a lot of that comes from TV and movies as well. And so if I bring this up, because obviously the BAFTAs are on tonight, and there was a lot of issues with a lot of the nominees in the BAFTAs, because I think there were, they weren't.
Which is awards?
Huh?
Which one are you talking about?
The British Movie Awards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Recently.
That's on tonight.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's about a lot of the nominees, because I think, it's almost kind of going back to that agenda of the Oscars so white, where majority of the nominees were, or this year are white, and there aren't any, I think in any of the major categories, there aren't any black nominees, and even Rapman came out and made an issue about that, because he mentioned that, he had, he made Blue Story or whatever the case may be, and Blue Story hasn't, as far as he's concerned, the actors or even like the movie, he reckons it should get recognition in some or one of the major categories, and it hasn't, and he felt like there is some form of prejudice there. I mean, even to the extent where I think 2 white actresses are nominated twice in just different categories.
Really?
Yeah, and I think there are a number of different movies with black talent, or I should say ethnic minority talent, that hasn't been nominated or brought to the forefront in terms.
So it's funny you say this, because I stopped listening to LBC, but I started listening to LBC again because I'm always interested in conversation, even if I don't agree with it.
Who did you listen to on it?
That I just turn it on. So whatever conversation is being had.
I stopped listening to that first guy.
What's his name?
Nick Ferrari.
Nick Ferrari.
Yeah. Don't like him. Don't listen to
But I listened to
the other guy.
Which other guy?
That is on after later. What is his name?
So I listened to a conversation where they were talking about the BAFTA, right? So they were talking about the BAFTA and the misrepresentation. And then they had a lot of callers calling in, right? And then this is how the conversation went. So you had callers calling in saying that if there isn't any BAME kind of movie or actors or actresses out there like that, why should they be represented? So one point was to say that there's nothing like that out there. If there's movies not out there, then you can't forcefully just give someone a title to say, oh, you're the best actor, when there isn't much in that kind of stream kind of thing. And then there was the other conversation to say that you just invite someone as a tokenism. So it's like you don't actually deserve it, but because we don't have any black representative, we're going to give you some sort of saying to say best director to, let's say, Ratman, which is like, what would that be? Not worse, because it's like a form of tokenism. And when I was listening to that, I was very intrigued, because I feel like they almost lose the point of that conversation. Where we had one caller calling in, and she was saying that unless you have that platform to get that talent through, of course it's easy now to sit here at the end of it Because this is what we're saying here. How many movies are being produced that have like black actors or black actresses in them?
Not a lot.
Yeah. So if you have a lot of movies that are being produced like that have black actors and black actresses, then when it comes to the BAFTA, it's not very hard, right, to choose, right? But if you have a lot of movies that are not being produced that don't have BAME kind of representation in there, then of course you're going to get this white kind of thing. So the conversation that you're having now is like a small screen to really look down at the actual issue.
I heard what you're saying. However, there's a flip side to it. Whoever is creating this agenda of the media or the BAFTA or the filming directors or the filming industry are so-called white people, right? So obviously, if I am gonna make sure that I open a business, and that business, my target are black, I want to make sure black people come in first. So by looking at the whole spectrum of it, they're going to go for so-called black white person first, making sure that they get the title, they get the awards, they get whatever. So that's the way I see this industry going on anyway. However, yes, we do need more directors, we need more actors and actresses or whatsoever. We're getting there, but it's not as much as you can say. So in a way, you can't really want to attack them or for what they're doing, you know, because that's part of, they're the one that created them kind of stuff like that. So more of the awards and the BAFTA or the directors are going to win this kind of stuff. That's what I'm thinking.
They're saying, basically, so what I get what you're saying, because it's like, they could possibly put an argument, well, the content isn't there, so we don't necessarily need to. But you got movies like Just Mercy with Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Foxx. You've got the Harriet Tubman movie as well. In fact, I think the actress in the Harriet Tubman movie, she's been nominated for an Oscar, you know, and she's a British actress. She's a black British actress, but wasn't nominated for a BAFTA.
Well, Letitia.
No, not Letitia. Right? It's a different woman.
So it's even funny because as part of this conversation, one caller came on to say, "Oh, but we don't call the mobile racist because the mobile is just literally meant to be for black people, right?" And that the thing of missing the point again is that with this argument that we keep on having, like what Ali mentioned, this is they created this industry, right? So if you create an industry that I'm trying to fit in, I try to fight, I'm not being represented, then of course I'm going to create my own industry, because black people, one of the callers said, it's because you are not being represented in all these kind of media platforms. Hence the reason why you have to create your own, because you have to represent your own. That's why you have the mobile. So don't use the mobile to say it's the mobile no racist. Look at the genesis of the mobile to say the mobile only exists because these kind of media
is mainstream.
Mainstream award does not represent what black people are doing. Do you know what I mean?
So I think it's fair.
Just to add, the actress in the Harriet Tubman movie, her name is Cynthia Erivo. So she's been nominated for an Oscar and she was nominated for a Golden Globe, but didn't get nominated for a BAFTA. Yeah.
Maybe she's not British enough, isn't it? Maybe like Stormzy, man. Not British enough, man. Where's your dad? You know, that's all that kind of stuff, man.
You know what? Also, for me, this person Morgans is actually really upsetting me a lot, because this guy literally needs someone to actually on him. Literally, I think personally, because I don't know how he thinks. I don't know why he goes. He actually thinks he's not racist. And the funny thing is, when Afro Hash, the lady that was actually giving her 3 point of the racistness of what is actually happening, he's saying, I don't see that racist. I don't see where it is actually racist. And it's just, I don't know if he's being naive. I don't know if he's just being funny. I don't know if he's just trying to wind her up, or I don't see what if it was just what the situation is. But I find him a bit disheartening.
I'm not sure if we've actually answered this question, or we've actually broken it down as to why in this country it's hard, or racism is quite covert, and where you're not able to put a finger on it.
I think that's probably the conclusion we come to. I think it's difficult to put you can't give a definitive answer to that question. You can certainly say racism exists in Britain, whether to say Britain's 100% racist, that's a difficult question to tackle, and it's a loaded question. There's so much behind it because, as I said, I think there is some level, you know, part of it is covert racism. You know, part of it is, you know, I guess prejudice is shown in like other forms, and shown in terms of like the media representation of you know, BAME, you know, people.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.
But do you think it's naive to think that it's going to be blatant in your face, as in someone's going to call you out?
That's a good point.
Even admit that, oh, the reason why I didn't give you that vote was because you're black.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think it's a bit naive, but then at the same time, and this is me playing devil's advocate here. Should this not be expected? In the sense that if you were in an African country and you had like white minority, like would it not be the same kind of thing? In regards to representation, regarding like even in the music industry and all these kind of, I'm just saying here that if you have a majority, then of course, are they not going to do things that suit the majority more than the minority? Is this not just part of like,
I know what you mean,
nature? You know, like just protecting your own kind of. And as I said, isn't it? This is me going down a different tunnel here, but
I think,
but that same notion though.
I think what you say is a very fair point. I think the problem I have is the sadistic, sinister nature that you might find in some of the racist things that are done in the UK, particularly the criminal justice system, in terms of how you will directly put certain things like
in place.
Someone that has a criminal record, how they completely treat them like second-class citizens in the UK. And then what do? Sentence more black people or young black people with those sentences to get those criminal records attached to them.
In the US, you can't vote.
You can't vote if you're a felon.
In the US. And you could, anyway. So even based on that, this is what they'll say.
But here it's
be like, wait, in the US you can't vote. At least here you can vote.
No, but here it's many things. Simple things like even you found in housing and you got a criminal record. Did you know that a landlord can't rent to someone with a criminal record because of their insurance?
Wasn't there something in the news about like certain estate agents being sort of biased towards like black tenants or prospective black tenants? I'm pretty sure. See, I'm speaking from the top of my head, but I remember there was an article about that, and in fact, whilst you're speaking, I'm going to look for it because I know that.
Yeah. So, and I just feel that intentional, under the table stuff. You wouldn't generally find that in an African country towards another minority.
So you're saying it'll be in your face. So you're saying that you only, and correct me if I'm wrong. Are we saying here that nature stuff, or how I describe this kind of thing, this slippery slope that we're going down, if it's like right in your face, then it's fine. It's just that this sadistic and how covert it is what makes it not sit well with you. Are you with what I'm trying to?
My argument isn't with the whole fine and that. It's just more in the comparison statement that you made in terms of wouldn't you find the same characteristics in Africa towards another minority race? And what I'm saying is not to the level or extent that you'll find in the UK as opposed to in another
guys.
country.
What I'm trying to get into is this. For me, Britain is 100% racist. I'll break it down. When it comes to education system...
Wow, that's a big statement you're making there. That?
No, this is my opinion towards this.
What did you say? Sorry.
What's it? That Britain is 100% racist. The reason why I'm saying this... No, I need to wait. I need the listeners to understand this because we are doing this for education purpose, right? When it comes to education, the education system, you blatantly will know exactly what they are doing. When it comes to education system, all right, in schools where there is majority of ethnic black in that school, there's a lot of separation, segregation, and the way when it comes to school meals, when it comes to activities, when it comes to parents getting involved, there's not enough. And then when it comes to parent governor and that kind of situation, for example, coach, you say you do parent what? The school governor? For example, school governor is a perfect example. A school governor, I believe, from my understanding, it's not quite a lot of black within the school governor, right? For example, your child goes to, your child goes to St. Paul's, for example. Within that school alone, would you find a lot of black school governor? Maybe no, maybe one.
But hold on, but is that because the black people are intentionally being blocked from being school governors, or there aren't that many black people going for school governor positions?
Let me answer that question. I think your point is valid, but however, majority of black do not know about that.
But that can't be. That's gonna have to do racism.
Well, the school governor, they make a decision, as Coach has been give me an example of it, right? They make the decision. So if you're making a decision, it's going to affect the children. And majority of the time, black children are affected in school prior to what they get, the detention or whatsoever or not. That's an education system. And then when you go to secondary school, that's another thing. When you go to university, that's a different example of the level of how it goes into. There's so much into the education system. When it comes to the politicians, for example, I know someone right now, she is working in parliament, and she gave me a perfect example. She has her hair very natural, and when she has her hair very natural, when she walks past, all the time they are stunned and look at it. But she had that very confidence within herself that she needs to have this appearance, so that, for example, some school children had activities that came to the parliament, and then unfortunately there was this black girl within the school. She came to her and said, "Oh, I love the way you represent yourself. I love the fact that I've seen you within the same." So that alone, there's not enough in that kind of area. Like, she had to fight to get where she needs to get into. And the politicians, for me personally, there's not a lot of us representing our community, and it's not enough of that is representing us in general. Like, if I have an issue, for example, I'm in South London. If I have an issue, my mayor, for example, I don't think my mayor is probably black, or within that area, I won't find enough black within that community that will represent, that I will go and cry for and say, "Oh, I need their support," or they will understand where I'm coming from and give me that kind of support thoroughly. I don't think that I get that. And then when it comes to employment, it is a huge open spread within that. When it comes to employment, it's very tough. For example, if my surname was I'm gonna have to make this a bit funny. If my surname was Academia or something like a proper strong surname, African, I would find it very hard to get a job. And the reason why behind it, because I might have all the experience, right? Don't get me wrong, I will have the experience, I will look for the job, and it fits within my role, within the curriculum, what they want and how they want it. But because my surname does not fit, and there was even a research based on that as well, it shows that statistically that happens all the time. So in that kind of area of it, employment, even I felt it. There's times even I was telling Cam about it. There's numerous times I do not get a job that fits me, that I wanted to get. But I'm fortunate now that I've got into that situation where I'm confident.
But what I will, just to interject, what I will say is that, I guess what I will say, and everyone speak for themselves, but like my experience in terms of racism is sort of is relegated literally to my experience in London. I can't speak for the rest of England because I've not lived in other parts of England. I haven't really had conversations with, say, BAME people in other parts of the country. So I can't, and I'm reluctant to make generalizations because I can't generalize just based on stuff I've seen or even experiences I've heard. It would have to be based on evidence and statistics for me, or facts, so to speak. So, and that's why I'd be reluctant to even push that narrative that Britain is 100% racist. That's just how I feel.
But then when you go outside London, you find majority of white are within outside London, and most of the time, their understanding is like Boris Johnson.
See, once again, I can't make that assumption.
I guess some of the stuff that you're saying regarding school governance, I understand your train of thought, but it's just how you're landing how you're ending your conversation in a sense. Because on one hand, if we're talking like there's a misrepresentation of black people, even on the level of school governance, and school governors make a decision, the question I have is how many black governors, just based on even what you mentioned, how many black people within these school systems are actually going for the school governor, actually applying for that role?
Some people don't know.
But then you not knowing doesn't mean that it's racist.
I didn't use the word racist. I mentioned you not knowing is going to affect your children based on the decision they're going to make.
That's not racist, though. If it's just based on what you're saying, that's not racist. That's ignorance. You're not knowing. You don't know that you could apply for that role, but then there is a system there. I had to find out for myself. And it's about the research that individuals going to do to say, my child belongs to this school system. I think in the black community, there's a lot of things we want to pass the buck a lot. And I'm not saying, and this is what I'm saying here, just before I get into this, I'm not saying that Britain is not racist, because the school system, I could show you examples of racism and how that affects these black children. That's the main reason why I became a school
the whole
governor.
Hair stuff and
the whole hair stuff, the whole kids being not banned, but when they exclusion, because I've read a report on exclusion and the basis of exclusion and all this kind of stuff. A lot of times it's to do with the culture, not understanding the cultural background of that child and all those kind of things. So there are some loaded things that are happening. But in regards to access to these kind of like school governor roles and stuff, I wouldn't say that. I just feel like it's more on us to really understand what's out there. And even going back down to even that footballing kind of example that you gave, I still also say, based on my experience, that from the players that I've coached, the black parents don't normally even turn up to watch their kids play football. It's on no one to do that. It's on the parent. There's no one here to be like, oh, it's racist, whatever. No, when I go to the white neighborhood, I see all the way. So just wrapping this up, I just feel like I'm not saying that Britain is not racist. There are certain stuff that are going on regarding their employment, because we had a discussion about does your name affect your chances of employment, and we have seen that definitely having a certain name will go against you if it's not kind of like a Western sounding name. So we know some of these things. So a lot of the stuff that Ali is saying, statistically you can prove that in different institutions these things are happening, but I would say it's just the way you are kind of delivering. I won't support the statements that you've kind of made, but I will support. Do you get what I mean?
The premise.
The premise of how you're structuring that.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.
So I guess really quick minute, just bringing this to a halt and qualifying the actual name of the episode, which is Britain is 100% racist ? What's your point of view on that kind of? Actually,
racism's still alive. They just be concealing it.
You go last. Okay. So again, what's your point of view on that, Ali?
From my experience and what is happening now, Britain is partial age racist. Obviously, there have to be statistic, there have to be evidence, there have to be everything that needs to support it. However, maybe there might be an improvement. We don't know, but at the moment, things are just piling up, and I don't know about that, what's going to happen. But from my view, Britain, it is racist. Maybe everyone might not experience their own different way of racism towards them or their surrounding or their community. But for me personally, I think they are racist. It's just how you as a person deliver it, is you as a person that knows how to counter it, and you as a person know how to make sure that it does not affect you in the long run or within yourself. That's what I think.
So I mean, in regards to the statement, I reckon that throughout Britain and throughout hundreds of years of other ethnic groups being in Britain, I would say that there is lots of statistics to prove racial bias in down to the media, down to the criminal justice system, down to education, literally down to every innate part of Britain. But to say that it's 100% racist would then mean for someone to actually say the reasons in those decisions, choices, or language that they've used is directly because of the race. And you will never ever get a direct answer to that particular question or be given that particular direct reasoning. And because of that, it will be difficult to support any statement saying that Britain is 100% racist, because there's never that 100% concrete reason it's because of the race. There's always some biased or undertone or underneath thing that is there but isn't directly said or expressed or justified. So yeah, there's definitely racism, but it couldn't say 100% because that can never be directly answered.
Yeah, I guess saying 100% is a bit of a... It's not. I always say, it's a bit of a reach in the sense that in the Western world, if you want a country that's a bit more hospitable to people from a different background, Britain will most probably be one of them, in all honesty.
Yeah.
From my experience alone, knowing that I don't want to live in the States anyway. So just based on that alone, I would say that. But then the other thing that I envy about some of these other countries is that it's overt, just like what you said. Like, you know, they will say it. They will be in part and parcel of that conversation. So even within their disenfranchised society, these conversations will be had and will be at the forefront of their agenda regarding how they need to progress or how they need to navigate around this. I think, obviously, in the state that we live in, when you think that there isn't any racism, then you tend to behave or act or even informing your kids how to navigate some of these things or how to actually differentiate or how to maneuver themselves around these things become difficult. You might never really have that conversation, but you need to have that conversation because of how this is being carried out. And just to wrap it up, I know obviously the Windrush scandal has proven that this country is racist. The Stephen Lawrence incident proved also that the police is institutionalized. What's the word?
Institutionally.
Thank you. Racist. So there has been events, and the media, for me personally, I feel like the media is racist because there was even in the article that I think we spoke about Raheem Sterling, when you had two youngsters buying a house for their mum, and how the media actually portrayed the white footballer and the black footballer just showed how loaded some of these things are. So I do feel like Britain is racist, but I won't say that Britain is 100% racist.
Yeah, I mean, to wrap it up, as I said before, I don't think I can, make that, statement that Britain is 100% racist. I think it's too much of a wide generalization for me. I think you can point to instances where, racism has been shown, one of which is clearly the Windrush scandal, and that's, and it's devastating that something like that was swept under the carpet, for such a long time, not yet, and I mean, even as I said, going back to, the Stephen Lawrence case, the institutional racism within the police, but even when you look, at modern day examples, like, as I said, what we say is happening with Harry and Meghan and the exposure they're getting in the media, and also the point I brought up about, the BAFTA nominees and sort of like the representation of BAME people within the media. I think the media perpetuates a lot of the rhetoric that goes around in terms of like racism and, and I think, as I said, my experiences in terms of race, my personal experiences are relegated really literally to situations in London, because that's where, I was born and bred, and it's where I've lived for all my life. But, to say racism doesn't exist, I think that would be an ignorant thing to say. It certainly does exist, I guess the question being is, if it exists, what I guess we've diagnosed the fact that it does exist. We've identified it exists, and I guess that the next point would obviously be to look to how sort of it can be addressed and fixed in other situations. Obviously, that's a very in-depth conversation, and certainly a very loaded topic, but those are my thoughts on it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LDN Perspective podcast. Please get in contact with us. We want to create more of an organic platform. So if you have any questions, please check our Instagram page, which is LDN Perspective. You could also reach us on Twitter, Perspective LDN. And please, you could always drop us an email at ldnperspective@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.